Animals too could, in theory, be designed never to wear out. Bones would never break. You could evolve bones that never break. But that's not an economical solution. Natural selection favors individuals that survive best and reproduce best. So an individual whose bones are so thick that they never break will not be a successful individual, because rival individuals with more breakable bones will have used the material that could have been put into the bones or the teeth or whatever it is to put into some other part of the body to make them survive better and make them reproduce better. So it's possible to be over-designed, and that's true of machines as well as of living things.
Can we talk a little about the politics of this book? I was struck when I was reading it. There's someone in the Obama administration talking about, in a completely different context, about healthcare reform. Said, "I wake up every day and thank God for our enemies." And I thought of that while I was reading your book, because, bar one phrase, it seems to me that whilst annoying and frustrating and as boneheaded as you obviously find people who deny evolution, there is also something that you must find occasionally amusing and even hilarious about the way in which people deny evolution. Do you see the funny side of it, or does it just infuriate you?
Oh yeah, I do see the funny side of it. I mean, there are some pretty comic ideas. I don't know whether you've seen, there's all over YouTube, there's a wonderful little film of it's called The Banana, the Atheist Nightmare. Have you seen that film?
No.
Yeah, okay, I see the audience. I can't do the Australian accent, but it's a chap. It's just like a Monty Python scene, and there's this Australian chap sort of sitting on a rather high stool, and an American actor on another high stool, and for some reason they're out on a sort of pebbly beach, I think it is, with a sort of backdrop behind. And the Australian chap picks up a banana and he says, "If you study a well-made banana, you'll see," and then he goes through each of the things that make the banana beautifully designed, like it fits neatly into the hand.
Right.
And it's got a tab at the top for ease of opening. So it doesn't squirt in your face. And then he says, and it's exactly the right shape. It's curved towards the face for ease of eating. And it's color-coded, green too early, black too late, yellow just right. It's worth looking up. Just Google banana creation or something like that, and you'll get it. So yes, it is. There are some very, very funny things. And that's not a satire, it's not a Monty Python sketch, it looks like one.
Right.
It's absolutely straight. I mean, he really, really meant it. And I presume there's a constituency out there who finds it convincing.
And yet, obviously, because we're... I'll never look at a banana in the same way.
There's something just funny about a banana anyway.
But then clearly, you are offended by evolution denial. Otherwise, I wouldn't presume you would have chosen that to make the comparison with Holocaust denial.
Okay, I'm not offended by honest ignorance. I am honestly ignorant of just about everything. So there's no insult in calling somebody ignorant. And if somebody's ignorant, that's remediable. You can do something about it. Education, education, education. I am offended by people who actively mislead children and vulnerable people. So people who abuse their position to lead people down a wrong path. That does actually offend me. You mentioned my comparison of evolution deniers to Holocaust deniers. That has been taken to be a sort of insult. It was just intended to be a straight comparison. In both of them are denying history. Both of them are denying, and I chose Holocaust denial because it's another example, one of the very few examples, where people are really prepared to deny not some esoteric piece of history, but a piece of history that's manifest denial. I mean, it's absurd, you know. This is something that happened within living memory. And so the overwhelming weight of evidence in favor of the Holocaust means that it is palpably absurd for anybody to deny it. And the same is true of denying evolution. It's not so recent as the Holocaust, but the evidence, if anything, is even stronger than the evidence for the Holocaust. And yet, there are people, not just a few people like Holocaust deniers, but some 40% of the American population. Now, that's a shocking figure.
And what do you think, I wanted to get into those 40%ers, that's a huge number of people. What do you think is behind their, in some cases, denial of evolution, in some cases, nostalgic attachment to the idea of creation, and in some cases, just sort of queasy discomfort around the science? What do you think is driving so many people to doubt something that you think is such an obvious fact?
Well, I just said that ignorance is no crime, and I can only think that a great number of them simply don't know what evolution is. I mean, I wasn't taught about evolution until I was about 15 or 16, and I suppose that if I hadn't gone into the biology stream at school, I might never have learned about it. Yet everybody is taught about Adam and Eve. And they're not really very seriously taught about it. I mean, they're not told that Adam and Eve really, really existed, or some of them are, I suppose. But even so, you sort of grow up in a culture where, without really thinking about it very much, you feel a sort of loyalty to the idea that the Bible is true. And so I think there must be enormous numbers of people who are not deeply dedicated to the idea of creationism, but just haven't really given it very much thought. And so if a Gallup pollster stops you in the street and says, do you believe in the book of Genesis? You say, well, I suppose I do, yeah, I guess I do. Because you don't know any alternative.
And how do you explain, I think there's something in that idea of loyalty to an idea. How do you explain that idea, particularly when it comes clearly to what you've written around God and the arguments for atheism, that there is clearly a body of people who even quietly acknowledge that what you say is probably right, but just wish it wasn't, that they wish that something they know not to be true were true?
The wife of the Bishop of Worcester, at the time of the publication of The Origin of Species, is said to have said, "My dear, let us hope that it is not true, but if it is true, let us hope that it does not become generally known." I mean, I've found reviews of my own first book, The Selfish Gene. There was one, I think,